everyone, welcome to this week's Cooking with William, and this week we're doing fondue. Fondue is fondue. Let's do it. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to take and cut up our selection of meats. I've already cut up most of this, but I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. We're going to cut them into bite-sized pieces. So that they're easy for dipping, and then we're also going. What we're going to do is we're going to add our spices to it. I'm going to be using for the steak here that I'm doing a brown sugar coffee chipotle, salt, roasted garlic, smoked paprika, and natural smoke flavoring for our rub on our steak. I'm just going to move that all around. Make sure it's all coated. And we're going to marinate this for a while until we're ready to actually use it. But this way we give it a little flavor for our meats before we actually put them in the fondue pot. Alright. Now let me clean up just a second. Okay, we're going to start looking at our chicken. The chicken, same thing. You want to cut into the small bite-sized pieces for the dipping. And we're going to use, for our marinade on this, we're going to use sea salt, onion, chili pepper flakes, garlic, sweet pepper, orange peel, rosemary, sugar, and black pepper with a little paprika and thyme. And just a little bit on there. That's good. And we'll set that aside to marinate. If you notice, I'm actually washing after each time so that we're not cross-contaminating our food. Alright, so now I'm going to take, this is a pork chop, and again, it's the same thing. Cut across the grain right there, make it into small bite-sized pieces. And for the pork chop, I'm actually going to use some Asian spice, which is basically sesame seed, garlic, sweet pepper flakes, green pepper, and green chili peppers with turmeric and ginger. So, just enough to coat the pork. Okay, and we'll set that one aside, and I'll be right back with our seafood. Okay, so as you can see here, I've got two types of seafood. I've got scallops and I've got lobster. I'm going to cut the lobster. The seafood, the scallops, I'm going to leave whole because they're just about the right size for dipping. So, what we're going to do, we're going to cut down the back of the lobster, and we're kind of trying to preserve the shell as much as possible. Sometimes that's not always easy, but if you rock your knife just slightly, you can hear it break through each of the pieces, and we try not to cut into the meat, but we're just a little pressure. And if you don't want to use a knife, you can actually take a pair of kitchen scissors and actually cut the back. Just go right down the back. And then, missed a little spot there. We can get that. Okay. And then you're going to want to try and pry it open just a little bit. Just enough so that you can get your finger started in there. And then if you take your finger and move around the lobster, you can get almost everything out and get it to detach itself from the shell and come out in a nice whole piece. Sometimes you end up breaking the shell a little bit, and then this one's going to be a little bit difficult. That's okay, we just set those aside and we'll throw them out. So, I got a little piece of that shell still connected, so I'm going to actually cut that membrane that is actually holding this together. Okay. Because underneath the shell you have this little membrane. If that's connected, then you won't be able to get through. So, like I said, you just kind of pry open the shell and run your finger down through, and as I do that, I will loosen it from the shell. And you just kind of pull it apart. Starts to come out really easy. Right at the tail, you're going to have a couple of spots where it'll probably tear off, but that's okay. Alright, so that part of the shell we don't want back in here. And you try and make sure that your fingers don't have any on it. I've got a little bit. And if your shell has some, you might want to, feel around, feel if there's any piece there. If there is, then you bring it over to the sink real quick, and we can do a rinse off and try and get all the shell pieces off. Okay, now we bring it back, and we're going to do exactly the same thing we did with our meats, just about bite-sized pieces, big enough for dipping. Okay, looks good. And then what I like to do, I like to present it back in the shell that it came out of. We just put the lobster meat back in, and we set it inside. Okay, for our seafood, all I'm going to do is a little salt and pepper on it for our marinating. So we're just going to sprinkle the salt and pepper. And one last item that I'm actually going to marinate it with is just a little bit of dried dill. A little bit of dill. There we go. Okay, so we have our seafood ready, and now we can get started on what we're going to make. Okay, so now that we got our meat marinating, what we're going to make today is a bourbon bacon cheddar fondue, a coq au vin style with 3 dipping sauces, a butter dipping sauce, a island sauce, and a green goddess dipping sauce. And then we're also going to make, for our dessert, a flaming turtle. Okay, so let's start with our sauces here. I'm going to start with the green goddess. Now, the green goddess, you're going to need a 1/2 cup of milk, a 1/4 cup of sour cream, 3/4 cup of softened cream cheese, 2 tablespoons of minced white onion, 1/4 cup of freshly chopped parsley. It should be finely chopped, except for the fact that I'm going to do this all in the blender, so I am actually just coarse chopping it. And then fourth cup of finely chopped chives. So, since we are doing this in the blender, I didn't chop mine as fine as it should be, and you might find it easier to do it actually in the blender than a bowl. So I'm going to put all my ingredients in to the blender. This is one of my favorite sauces for fondue. Is the green goddess. You could actually even buy just the green goddess salad dressing and work just the same. All right, and then what we're going to do is I'm just going to pulse this on about 1. Start it. Okay, and now I'm going to go ahead and start it and let it go. Okay, that looks good. Not very long. And you should get a nice green texture to it with little bits of parsley and chive. If you got big chunks in there, you probably want to do it a couple more times. Nicely done. Okay, now we're going to want to chill this while we're fixing all of our other stuff. So we'll go ahead and put that in the refrigerator. Our island sauce is going to have a half cup of marmalade. We're just going to put that in there. A clove of garlic. A half a lime juice. A teaspoon of fresh parsley. A teaspoon of kosher salt. A half teaspoon of cayenne pepper. A half teaspoon of onion powder. And a 4th teaspoon of black pepper. And I'm going to just stir this to get it started, and then we'll whisk it in. There we go. Just kind of whisk it all together, soften up all that marmalade. This is great for any Asian spices that you're using for your meat. Alright, that looks good. Looks well combined. So we'll put that in the fridge and we'll start our next one. So next we're going to do the butter garlic sauce. Butter herb dipping sauce. And this is great for our seafood. Okay, so what we're going to need is 2 sticks of softened butter, or 1 cup. We're going to need 2 tablespoons of lime juice, 1 tablespoon of freshly chopped chives, 1 tablespoon of freshly chopped parsley, tablespoon of freshly chopped tarragon. Okay, and then a little hot pepper sauce to taste, and usually it's about 2 or 3 for us. Okay, and we're going to mix that all together. Until we get the lemon juice completely absorbed. Mixed in. This is another one that if you want, you could go ahead and put it in a blender or something. I'm actually going to go ahead and soften this a little bit more in the microwave, get some more blending going on. Okay, now that we did that, it's a little bit easier to mix it like this. Okay. And we're going to let this sit for just a few minutes. What eventually I'm going to do is I'm going to take a couple teaspoons or a couple spoonfuls of this, and we'll be putting them into our little warming pots. If you don't have a warming pot, that's okay, because it really, once you get this this heated, it really will pretty much stay like this throughout the entire party that you're having. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and stop right here, and I'll start doing the fondues. Okay, so we're going to start our fondues, but first I'm going to talk about fondue pots. I've started liking the electric fondue pot because you can actually control the speed, but you also have ceramic, and then you also have tin or aluminum fondue pots. The nice part about the electric, you can control what your temperature is. You can control to an extent with the moving the vents on the ceramic fondue pots and the aluminum pots to get a temperature that you like. The ceramics are good for cheese and chocolate only. The metal ones are good for the coq au vin style that we're going to do, which you are going to need a higher heat, and I would suggest using a electric one for that. So anyway, what we're going to do is and then I also have the small individual butter sauce ones that I brought up before. These are also fondue pots and can be used to put your chocolate for a single person, dipping for a single person in. So now what we're going to do is we're going to start on our bourbon bacon cheddar fondue. Okay, so first we're going to make a bourbon bacon cheddar fondue. And what we're going to need for that is 2 3/4 cups of cheddar cheese, 3 tablespoons of all-purpose flour, 1 cup of light beer, or pretty much any beer you prefer. If you like a dark beer, go ahead and try it with a dark beer. It should be okay. 4 teaspoons of horseradish, 4 teaspoons of dry mustard, 2 teaspoons of Worcestershire sauce, 1 tablespoon of bourbon, 2 tablespoons of cooked bacon. A trick with your bacon, if you actually use a pair of kitchen scissors and cut them into little squares, you'll get nice crumbled bacon so you don't have to actually break it up after it's cooked. You just cook it like that. And then 2 teaspoons of finely ground pepper, and 4 teaspoons of scallions chopped. Okay. So now what we're going to do first is I'm going to actually take half of our cheese, and I'm going to take the 3 tablespoons of flour, and we're going to actually mix that in with the cheese. And you can do this by hand. Okay. This will actually allow our cheese to act as part of the thickening agent. But we're only going to do that with half of our cheese. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my burner for the electric pot here up to a medium high, and I'm going to put in the beer, and my horseradish, my dry mustard, and my Worcestershire sauce. And we're going to just whisk that all together. These are electric fondue pots are really, really nice, and they're actually really inexpensive. But this one, the other day when I was looking online on Amazon, was only like $39.99, so it's relatively cheap. Okay, it looks like we're getting pretty close here, so I'm going to start adding the cheese because we're getting pretty warm here. I'm going to start just a little bit at a time. See if it melts. Okay. And turn down just a little bit. And sometimes you won't need as much cheese as other times. I'm kind of looking like that's the case here. So now I'm going to go ahead and take the bourbon, and I'm going to go around the rim with this and try to pull this away from the rim. Just kind of allow it to go down the sides. Okay. And we're going to keep this at a low heat. So now I'm going to go ahead and add my black pepper and my bacon. Stir that in together. And then I'm going to just sprinkle the scallions right on top. Okay, this is ready to go to the table, and then we'll start our next one, which is our coq au vin. Okay, so we're going to do our coq au vin now, and you want to go again medium high. This is going to be 3 3/4 cup of water. And 1 1/2 cup of Burgundy. And you just pretty much add all these right in. As soon as I get to them, I'm going to be putting them in. So, and here's 3/4 cup of sliced mushrooms. 1/4 cup of chopped scallions. 3 tablespoons of finely chopped onions. 2 tablespoons of garlic. 1 tablespoon of finely chopped carrot. 1 tablespoon of finely chopped celery. 2 tablespoons of kosher salt. And 1 tablespoon of freshly ground pepper. Okay, now I'm going to stir that up. And we're going to let that come to a boil. Okay, so now a couple words about food safety. When you're throwing a fondue party in which you're doing coq au vin style, you want to make sure that you have a separate plate plated for your meat versus the plate that they're going to be eating off of. And also make sure that everybody knows not to use their dipping forks at that point on their on their plate that they're going to eat. You want to actually just use the dipping forks for the meat itself. Okay, that way nobody is going to get E. coli or something. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to let this boil, and I'm going to go ahead and put it on the table, and we're going to go ahead and start our next one. Because pretty much once you get a boil, you want to dip the meat. For each piece of meat should be about 2 to 3 minutes cooking time, or until the desired doneness. Okay, so we'll go ahead and start our flaming turtle dessert. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to do the flaming turtle. So first off, I've got some dark chocolate here, about 12 ounces of dark chocolate, 2 tablespoons of heavy cream, 1/4 cup of caramel, and 1 tablespoon of 151 rum, and 3 tablespoons of chopped pecans. What I'm going to do is I'm going to actually pour my heavy cream into my bowl with the chocolate. And we're going to put this into the microwave for 30 seconds and then we'll stir it. Okay, while that's going, I'm going to go ahead and light my fondue pot, and we're going to get that up to temperature. Alright, I'm going to bring that chocolate and heavy cream down, and we're going to stir it and mix it together. And you're going to keep doing this until the chocolate is completely melted. Okay. One more time, I think. Maybe not quite the full 30 seconds. Okay. That looks pretty good. So now what we're going to do is we're going to put this in the fondue pot. I think I need to turn this down just a tiny bit. Alright. So now that we got that, we're going to put in our caramel. And we're not going to stir our caramel, and this is just basically caramel ice cream topping. Right, and then we're going to take our rum and we're going to pour that in there. And then the fun part is, and you would normally do this when you have everybody seated at the table, but we're going to do it right now because we can. You light the rum. Okay, that's the flaming part. And as soon as the flames go away, we will sprinkle on our pecans. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start on this side as that last bit of flame is going out. And we're just going to sprinkle the pecan onto it. There goes our flame. Okay, and there we go. There is our flaming turtle. Okay, so we'll be right back and we'll plate up the meat for the dishes and also some serving suggestions to go with the other fondues. Okay, So now we're about ready to set the table. What I've gone ahead and done is I've made a bread selection and apple selection for our cheese dip fondue. And for our dessert fondue is some strawberry and some angel food cake. Place all your sauces into their containers you're going to serve with, and then just little piles of meat for your coq au vin fondue. And remember what I said, keep this plate separate from the plate that they're going to be eating off of. You don't want them eating off of this plate. So if you see somebody's fork or their dipping fork end up on their eating plate, then you're probably going to want to wash that plate. Okay? So anyway, one last step, make sure you heat up your butter sauce. So that it's melted and ready to go. We're going to put this on the table and we'll see you in just a second. And there you go. Fondue is a fondue. We'll see you next time. So, bon appetit.